Hey guys, it's Daniel Faust with War Hero to Superhero. Have you ever worn sunglasses during a boardroom meeting? Of course not. That'd be extremely weird. And that's the same thing as we go transition back. So, again, I am your host, Daniel Faust, and we are this week reconnecting in the boardroom. So, come join my virtual boardroom because the sights, the smells, and the sounds are coming back to our offices across America, right? Just like we used to wear sunglasses at night, right? Yeah, right. But now we're going to discuss today is do we need to Zoom still? So that's what we're going to be talking about. And our topic in question for tonight is to Zoom or not to Zoom is our question for tonight because Zoom's original intention was for enterprise to use. So big businesses. So when you were connecting and enterprises were like, let's say in San Antonio and let's say California, and they wanted to go over and connect and to go over and collaborate, that was originally Zoom's protocol. And now when we got into COVID, everybody jumped on the pike to go over and use Zoom. It was never meant for teachers and students. We had 1.5 billion students go over and come home, and a bunch of us went home, and everybody was Zooming along. We lost bandwidth, and teachers were scrambling using whiteboards on videos and things of that nature. And we want to talk to you about some good reasons to use Zoom as you're coming back to the workplaces and some bad reasons to use Zoom. Because again, sunglasses in a virtual conference room doesn't go over and work, right? So let's talk about good reasons and bad reasons to use Zoom and some tips if you're still using the product. So a good reason to go over and still use Zoom is you need to video chat. The first 40 minutes are free, and it's a pretty simple protocol. You just send a link and you just jump on. So that's a good reason to go over and use. A bad reason to use Zoom, again, just like these glasses, tactical learning. If you need hands-on approach of learning, it's not good to go over and use Zoom. You can watch videos and learning stuff, but kind of like wearing sunglasses in the middle of the night or on a Zoom, it's very hard to go over and see, and tactile learning doesn't work out well on Zoom. Going from there, a good reason to Zoom is to collaborate with people. Maybe you want to keep that still social distancing and whatnot, but you still need to collaborate into offices and whatnot. And you don't really want to have to buy a enterprise software because the first 40 minutes are free. Again, another bad reason to go on Zoom is to go over and do conflict resolution. Have you ever tried with sunglasses at night? That whole song? No, it doesn't work. Conflict resolution is very difficult to go over and to do in Zoom because you don't have that tactile connection with people. Just like me right now, if I try to go over and grab the keyboard, things are going to look weird. So the same thing with conflict resolution. If you're in an active conflict with somebody, you don't want to go over and go use Zoom to go over and do that. Only if absolutely necessary. If there's no way for you to go over and connect and to resolve it, then Zoom might be a good thing. But we highly recommend you not to go over and use Zoom for conflict resolution. We'll get to the comments in a moment. A good reason to Zoom is sharing presentations. So if I went over and shared my screen and showed you the different links on where to go get to the Easy Way wall or to go over and to connect, and if I was doing a presentation, if I didn't want to go use these banners and I had a lot of video type presentation, it's good to go over and use Zoom. A bad reason to go over and Zoom again is going over and doing PHI or PII. So for my military medical folks, my veterans that are in the medical system and my first responders, PII and PHI is basically personal private information and the health information. Those two types of information you should never be going over and sharing on a unsecure model. Even with Zoom's government protocol, you still don't want to go over. So if you're watching this and you're my main audience of military veteran and first responder, using Zoom and talking about PHI and PII stuff is not going to go fare well for anybody. So keep your information safe and find an enterprise video chat that has secure channels. Zoom is building it now, but they were not originally built for that. They're not built for privacy. They're not built for data transfers and things of that nature. And they've had a lot of breaches. You even saw that they had to make new passwords. Like you get the room code and then you get a password that you can set up. They've been doing better and they have a new 5.0 update, But the thing is the initial intention for Zoom was not to put your PHI and PII on there. So if you are working in those realms in the military veteran world, I'd highly recommend you to go find another protocol to use Zoom. Let's go to the comments real quick. Skype is no longer cool. You're right about that, Benjamin. Skype is no longer cool. So very few people use it. There is still used on some enterprise in the government in that particular regard, but it's more of a government enterprise thing. It works very well on that side. So at least my opinion. All right. Going from there, now that we got some examples of when to use Zoom and when not to use Zoom, let's talk about overall tips if you have to regular Zoom. So if you're the entrepreneur transforming from war hero to superhero, or if you're the military person that's still at home and you go to certain things, like I have a Zoom webinar at 2 on Thursdays. We still regularly use it to pass down education and training information. There's some regular tips if you're jumping on more than just the occasional one meeting. So if you're the regular Zoomer, Zoom, you want to go over and take these tips in stride. Zoom tip number 1, be aware of video fatigue. There is so much processing of information. Like when you're in a regular audience in a conference room and presenting, you're already scared as junk on the particular presentation. And now if you're scared of the people that are in front of you, now you have them on video, you're processing all their faces, all the little nuances. When you do it in an audience, you're doing it in general and you're glancing from person to person. In this particular room, you're processing all their auditory, all their visual information, their home, maybe they're talking in the background because we're still learning Zoom etiquette. So in video etiquette, a lot of times people just go over and talk. That's why teachers were truly exhausted during these seasons, because they were used to processing group dynamics that they trained for. They got a 4-year degree. They went over and got a teacher certification. They had a year to go practice in the room, usually with another teacher. And for us as the rest of America, we went over and we never processed this and we did very few videos. So the majority of us weren't doing video calls on a regular basis. And now that we were. So be aware of video fatigue. That's a Zoom tip number 1. If you can go over and schedule things differently, we're going to give you some tips specifically on how to go deal with that video fatigue. Zoom tip number 2, schedule breaks. So if you have Zoom after Zoom after Zoom and you're the controller of your schedule, maybe you need to go over and schedule a break. So if you're working with clients or interfacing with customers and things of that nature, interfacing either with military or first responder or veteran customers or even civilian customers, schedule those breaks in between. Don't go car ramrod your day. You took breaks at the water cooler or outside or at the smoke pit before, you still need to do the same thing for the video. You get so much fatigue by being on this every single day. So schedule those breaks in between. So if you have patients or you have regular customers, go over and leave yourself a break in between. And a lunch is just not going to be enough. You need to get those eyes away from the monitor. Most professionals say you want to take at least a 5 or 10 minute break every hour away from the monitor. So if you can find a task to do something else, get away from the Zoom, get 5 or 10 minutes, just maybe close your eyes, go over and meditate, maybe use the Calm app as we talked about yesterday, schedule those breaks in between. If you're having to constantly be on Zoom, Zoom tip number 3, maybe go audio if possible. If you're not the main person talking, like right now, audio wouldn't work on a Facebook Live. I can't just go over and do that. But if you're going over and you're the listener like you guys are, you guys could be listening to me just audibly. So if you're doing this in a Zoom and you'd be interactive, maybe you can just go over and go dial in the phone number or go over and just put your video and your audio on mute, and then you can just be an audio listener. It takes a lot less energy to listen to audio, and you actually listen more in depthly than with the video. The video, you can pick up a lot more nuances, of course, and you get a lot more of that deeper connection. But if you're just listening for informational purposes, or maybe that you have to be there and you're just waiting to give your next statement or comment, go over and shut off your video for the thing and just go audio. That's what I do in a lot of the Zoom Teams type meetings that I go over and do. So I just go over and I just go audio. Zoom tip number 4, shut off the video if possible. So if you have an opportunity that you don't need to go over and see the video, if you're the people in the background, maybe you're just presenting and you don't need to see all that, process that information on the individuals, or if you're going over and you're the participant, shutting off your video. And again, if you can just go audio, like you're going audio, but maybe you can shut up your own personal video. So it's less that you have to worry about. Like for myself, when you have your video on, you're processing what you're doing and everything else, and you get really subconscious. And there might be things that you might not want to be doing. Like who wants to be going over and maybe eating or drinking or doing some other nasty things? Hopefully, you're not doing nasty things. 60% of people pick their nose. So, I mean, that's just one. So share up the video if possible. Going from there, if you are one of the presenters or someone's going to go over and ask you questions when you're planning out your Zooms, let's say you do a 45-minute Zoom and you're with a client, or if you go over and you're doing a presentation, plan for those questions, leave buffer for questions. And also you need to decide what type of questions are you going to do. Are you only going to do text questions, or are you going to go over and allow people to audibly go over and speak? In smaller collaboration things, video is going to be better in the sense of them talking back and forth. Now, when you get into bigger groups, 12, 25, 50, 100 and whatnot, it might be best to go over and to just have text questions, which we'll get into that specific tip in a moment. Zoom tip number 6, take charge of your room early. And now this one we're going to break down. If you go over and you're the moderator, you're the person in charge, and you don't put ground rules in your Zoom, people are going to run all over you. You're going to get run over by random questions. You get run over by people's audio. They're not going to go over and mute themselves. They don't know how to use the mute button, or they don't know how to go engage their mic. So here's a couple tips to go over and moderate well. First off, have your audience text the questions and have a moderator. So if all possible, you have one person that pays attention to those questions, and you tell everybody like, hey, if you have any questions, go put them in the text chat. That's what we do over here. If you guys have any questions, you guys have any comments or any feedback, I used to go over when I used to do Facebook Lives, I would add people in, but you just don't know what you're getting yourself into, and you don't know what to go over and filter, and you don't know if it's a worthwhile question. So go over and have your audience, just like you guys. This is always a dialogue, never a monologue. Add your comments and questions in the feed. Then you can get emotionally prepared, mentally prepared for those questions, and then address it back. And then if the person has a good question, you want them to bring them forward, you could say, hey, Susie, we're going to bring you forward. You can ask your question out loud. You have them unmute their mic, or you do it for them as the moderator, then have them ask the question, do the exchange. Because sometimes the exchange is fruitful. Sometimes the exchange is not. So that's a good thing to go over and use text. Going from there, taking charge of your room is another way for Zoom tip number 7, is break up your presentation with multiple presenters if possible. It gets exhausting if you go over and you're just doing a 30-minute, hour and a half presentation. If you're working as a team and you're collaborating, and it's good practice for everybody to go switch the roles, is that maybe break up the presentation. Like, hey, from slide 1 to slide 10 is mine, 11 to 20 is yours, and 21 to 30, you go close it. You're the great closer in the presentation. You go close it. I'll go over and open it. We'll have our buddy Jim or Susie or Tommy or whatever your name is do the middle, and boom, you keep your energy up. It keeps people engaged because you're switching back and forth, and it also goes over and keeps people going. That's why I did the sunglasses today, because you guys saw the sunglasses and the numbers went up. I broke up the presentation. I didn't have a slide, but I broke up the presentation. So you have your eyeglass person, me, and then the regular version. Let's go to the comments real quick. All right, Martha says hello, and she goes over and says totally agree. Thanks for the comment. All right, let's go jump into a couple more tips and then our challenge for the day. All right, Zoom tip number 8: wear a headset to isolate the audio and video and encourage other people. The reason why I wear the headset is not to go over and to look cool. It's because most computers or webcams have a microphone and the video right next to each other. And sometimes if you have that speaker then going over and pushing back up and through, you go over and you get feedback very easily. So if you can go over and separate the channels, I got myself a Yeti mic. The Yeti mic has an audio input, allows me to hear anybody if I jump anybody in a live, or in our interviews next week, our superhero battle room interviews. It breaks it up in the sense of not the channels pumping back into each other, and you can actually focus a lot better. And then you don't pick up those little nuances. So and you don't have to pick up your voice reverberating back. So encourage your other people to say, break out your headset and go plug it in. AirPods, iPhone, Dr. Dre, whatever brand you go over and have, but a standard 3.5 millimeter jack or a USB jack headset for about 10, 20 bucks. Boom, makes everything more beautiful and actually a lot easier to focus in the Zoom. Zoom tip number 9. This is probably the most important one, especially if you're doing these things on a regular basis. You're doing presentations, you're doing this as a speaker, you're doing this as a coach, or you're going over and it's part of training in the military and you're going over and offering this. I start doing this hopefully next week in some of the programs I go over and manage, is to record the video. You got to get people's approval though, or you give them a heads up like, hey, FYI, you're recording. So, but you're recording the video. If you're doing it as a business, you want to give a disclaimer like, hey, all comments and this and this and this. But for business purposes, you go over and get that heads up. And this is the reason why. First off, it allows others to rewatch. So you give the members time to go over and process. If they're going through Zoom after Zoom after Zoom, and this one is important to them and they needed to learn, but they have like 10 Zooms right up ahead in book and whatever, then you can go over and allows them to an opportunity to rewatch. It also minimizes running multiple sessions again and again and again, because just like the real world, people in the virtual world will miss this. So people that are watching right now, if I went over and just did this live and never allowed Facebook to go and record this, and I didn't have a recording for my podcast and everything else, and people are like, wow, that was amazing, or oh, I missed that time, I'll be like, I got to do it over and over and over again. I've done this in the real world. I've done presentations. It is exhausting to take the same presentation and give the same energy and the same fervency and the same focus and connection. Now you're adding video to the factor, and those 50, 100, 200 people going over and watching. And now you're like, I got to do it again. So it minimizes running multiple sessions. And then you can choose the best session. So even if you ran, let's say, multiple sessions live to give to your audience, you can then choose the best one and then run that one on future. And the best part of it is if you're doing this as a business, you're the military veteran first responder that's transforming your life, and you're becoming a speaker, you're becoming a coach, you're becoming a trainer. You can use this for evergreen purposes. Evergreen is basically, this is high-end stuff I'm talking about, is that you have automated your sales funnel, and now the webinar is the best of the best webinar that you've given is now recorded, and now you have a staff that interacts with the comments. So now you only have to interact on an audio feed while everybody's in the background, and then you can answer their questions. So that's a good thing too, is to go over, and if you're doing Zooms on a regular basis, especially for business, go over and record it. And then when you got a great product, you can evergreen it and then have your staff or yourself, or once your staff gets to know your voice, they can start answering the questions for you. And now you have an automated product that brings in money, because we want to transform you from war hero to superhero, no matter where you're at. So if that's one of the steps you want to do, that's a great thing to do, is you're being a Zoomer. All right, so that is pretty much about it. This one's actually a short one for this week because it's really tactical. I mean, today, not this week, today in that regard. So your superhero challenge, if you're watching this on live or if you're watching this in replay, I want you to comment in the video today if you love or hate Zoom. Wherever you sit at, I'd love to go hear your thoughts. And then share your tips to Zoom well. So if there's ones that you agree with and you use, we'd love to go hear the ones that you use that we recommended. If you have other Zoom tips that you learned over COVID-19 time and now reconnecting in the boardroom, we'd love to go hear your comments on there. And lastly, we have like one announcement. I'm just going to go get into my notes for a second. So just give me a moment. Boop. And we're there. We're there. All right. So actually 2 quick announcements. Number 1, we love to go over and see you tomorrow. We're going to be talking about bankify your relationships. So if you want to understand your relationships at the next level, we'd love for you to go over and join us. And actually, today's the 16th. And then we'll have an opportunity for you to go over and take that to the next level in a live webinar from our company and CEO, Sherry Tree. We'd love for you to go over and enjoy this. So join us tomorrow. And if you're, and our last announcement is, this is always our same announcement, is that if you're struggling in the boardroom and you're like, I'm not getting how to go over and to do this type of thing, I don't get the Zoom world, I don't get how to reconnect, or if you're struggling in the other rooms, in the bedroom or in the living room, then please go over and connect with us. 20 minutes free consultation for any military, veteran, first responder. And if you want to take your superhero transformation to the next level, go down and look at our ticker for patreon.com/thrive not survive. For as low as $5 a month, 1 cup of coffee, you can go over and become that marriage superhero. Or if you want to bring it up to the next level, you can become that leadership superhero, or become into the superhero sanctum to have that full war hero to superhero transformation. So that's about it. Again, this is always a dialogue, never a monologue. So go over and join us. And if you don't join us in the lives, we also have our TV show, War Hero to Superhero, every Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. on your local streaming device near you, Amazon, Roku, Apple TV. And we love to go over and connect with you there. So we're here to go over and serve. We hope you have a great Tuesday. Enjoy the sun. And we see you tomorrow on Bankifying Your Relationships, reconnecting in the boardroom. Because if you don't understand the relationships you're walking into, the only thing is going to be depleting your checking account. So let's go over and bankify it and increase it. Thanks. Have a good day.